today we've replaced Andrew. What? You're not a cat.
Hi guys.
No.
Hi guys, welcome back to Accelerate. We have got a few cars lined up, but due to the circumstances at the moment, and no doubt the weather, we have had to postpone them. So for today, what we thought we'd do is give you a run through of who we are, our car history, and what got us into cars. Let's get stuck in. Right, so we'll start with yours, because your list is like twice as long as mine.
Yeah, I've had to cut it down quite a bit though, because it'd be something not far off a Lord of the Rings movie otherwise, yeah. Yeah,
we're only going to mention the ones that sort of point towards petrol heads enthusiasts, the interesting ones basically. So, First car, where did you start?
Right, I had a Peugeot 205. It was a 1.4 open, had electric windows. It was an F plate, 1989. My parents bought it for my mother to use. I loved it, and they just basically turned around at Christmas and handed me the keys. That was my first motor.
Did it stay standard?
No. What happened was, I come home one night before I was even past my test. Parked next to my 205 was a 1.6 GTI, which my father had brought home from work. First thing I thought, yes, engine conversion. I went in the house, asked him if I can do it, and he basically said no, because I was 17.
Good choice.
Yeah, it was quite wise at the time, because I did drive that thing like it was, well, the fastest thing on the planet.
Like it was a GTI.
Yeah, pretty much. So we stripped everything off the GTI, interior, carpet, all the body kit, the wheels, and transferred it onto mine. Did go through some colour changes before I finally, I know, well, I was only 17 and it was back in the day.
A little bit
yeah, I painted like the arches, and I had them blue, I had them white. In the end, I'd done them the normal GTI black. It was stunning when it was finished. So, and then I sold it. So next up then was I bought a Cavalier GLI 2 litre. I was only 18. I don't know why I bought that car.
So it's an unusual car for an 18-year-old.
Yeah, well, one of the boys had a 2 litre Cavalier, and I was like, I've got to get me a 2 litre, because I thought it was all about capacity back then. So I didn't have it for long. I put an F50 bonnet vent on it, and a big fly catcher bumper on the front. But the car was gold, and the bonnet bumper was green. So anyway, I only had that about 4 months.
Luckily, we learned from our mistakes.
Yeah. I actually was saving up for a CRX Mark II VTEC.
Now we're talking.
In red. That thing was absolutely beautiful. It was only like 40-something thousand miles on the clock. Yeah, you didn't know that.
I didn't know.
It had full B&B audio sound system built into the boot, all kicker competition stuff, and it went like a hot snot.
And the pièce de résistance was started my obsession with TSW Venoms.
Yes, yeah, it had a set of 16-inch TSW Venoms on it. Then after that, I sold the CRX, which I shouldn't have really, and I bought a Renault 5 GT Turbo. That's the reason. Yeah, I seen someone with a dump valve, and I was like, well, I gotta get one of them now.
First time I ever experienced a dump valve, I didn't even know what it was, but it was an Renault 5 GT Turbo.
Yeah. Flying
past me in Lamrumney, making whoosh noises, and I just didn't know what it was, and I thought, I want that.
I like it. Yeah, that's the first thing. That's the only reason I actually bought mine.
Yep.
Wasn't that good, and because I was 19, I think at the time, they basically wanted me to put unlimited security on the car, so I had to sell it within, I think it was 3 to 4 weeks, and I couldn't afford to go throwing money at it. So I got rid of that, and then I went and bought another CRX. This time it was a silver one. Well, it was silver with a lilac flip on the paintwork. It was modified. It was a bag of crap. I should never have bought it. Yeah, it was a leaking windscreen. There was more puddles in it than outside.
Was it really?
Oh, it was terrible. It was but it looked pretty. It did look pretty.
It's bad when you go from a really good example of a car to a really bad example.
I spent the same money on that one as the red one too. So yeah, that wasn't a very good idea, but I done it nevertheless. My father wasn't happy about it. Yeah, he really wasn't impressed with that. So anyway, that was sold. Back to the guy I bought it off. Sold the CRX, and I went to a white MR2 G Limited tin top Mark II. Once again, I was only 19 when I had that. Fuel as well, you put a tenner in it, last 110 miles.
Really?
Yeah, it's tenner fuel. That was pretty special though. I don't think I've got any photos of it, but I was working for a styling company back then, and we put a Toyota Celica.
Gen 6.
Yeah, there we go. We fitted a Veilside kit from the Celica onto the MR2. And we put Supra rear spats on it. And one of the wheel companies we used to deal with, and they sent me a set of Lenzo Stage 1s, which were the first set in the country. Basically that. There was a photo of it in Pascal magazine. Don't know where that magazine is. I know my mate Gavin's got a few photos of the car next to his red one.
Put your finger up, Gav, we need the photos.
Yeah, we need some pictures of you, man. After that, I went out and bought a BMW 320i Coupe E46 in black off my uncle, which was owned by my father, who sold it to my uncle, and I bought it off my uncle. Does that make sense? Yeah. I bought that off him, and it had a bit of a missing issue and all the rest of it. I took it on to one of the guys I know. Vanis was gone, cheaper to replace the engine. Yeah, so I had the engine swapped over. It was just a straight 6 2-litre. Then I decided I wanted bushy turbo noises because I seen an S13.
Yes.
So I went all the way to London and swapped the BMW for an S13, and this S13 was white with a yellowish bonnet on it. That was an absolute shed. So on the way home,
it's a common theme.
On the way home, I stopped in the tunnel. We were sat in traffic for about 10 minutes. I looked at my mirror and I couldn't see a thing behind me. It was bellowing smoke out the back of it. I said to the guy, and he was like, "Oh yeah, it's been sat for a while." So me being naive and young, I was like, "Yeah, okay, no problem." Took it home, had new turbo fitted. Yeah, it turned out I think it was the rings were on their way out. Then I ended up buying another MR2. This time I went for another Rev 2, red.
Yes, really well done.
Oh yeah, that was a really nice car though. It was straight, it was clean. I had a few things done to that. I had it resprayed. One of the guys I know, Mark, hopefully featuring his car soon, he has an Escort Turbo. He done all the interior for me in black and red suede. I had 18-inch Oz Super Turismos.
Yes.
Yeah, I had a custom exhaust through Pro Speed, a snorkel and a turbo engine cover. So when that was all done and stunning as well, I ended up selling that. There's a bit of a theme going here, isn't it? I seem to get into it, like, you know,
buy a shed, spend your life savings on them, and then sell them for pennies.
Yeah, well, the reason I sold that though is Gavin was he had a Nissan 200SX. It had the turbo was gone on it, and he just didn't want to spend the money on it. So I was like, I bought it off him. I got it home. We took the rubbery foamy spoiler thing off the back, and it was just holes about that big in the boot lid. First things first, let's buy a body kit. So we put a genuine Uras 4 Monkey Magic body kit from Japan. Me and my father built that car. We fitted it all. I bought a GT28R turbo. Got it running, got it as it should. Had it all resprayed in Lambo green, which was pretty cool back then. Proper Fast and Furious. Yeah, it was a nice car that. Awesome. But as a daily, I bought a Honda Civic Coupe off one of the other guys I know. He was selling it. He was like, I want to get rid of this, and I was like, okay, I'll buy it. So the first thing I'd done with it was, I know Andrew loved his Civic, so first thing I'd done was drive down to his house. And I was like, what do you think of this? And he was like, oh my god, I want it. I let him drive it.
I saw it, and you get cars that you like, you get cars that you love, and there's cars that you must have. And I just had a feeling of, I have to own that car. Yeah,
so I done the decent thing and let him have it.
Instead of keeping it,
yeah. So I let him have that, so I had to go and buy another daily. So I bought the Saxo VTS. That was okay. Lovely little car, really, really clean actually. I sold that to Mike.
Yes.
And he had it for 6 weeks.
Yeah, it wasn't long, was it?
And some girl on her mobile phone went straight in the back end of it and wrote it off. Terrible, terrible. Such a straight, clean car, that.
Yep.
So the S13 I put up for sale, and Wilson bought it off me. Then I went out and bought yet another MR2. But I bought a Rev 5 in black, T-bar again. Really, really nice car.
Yes.
But then my mate Rob turned up in his E46, which all of us pretty much owned except for Andrew. Hellrod Red. So yeah, he turned up in that, and it was Evolve tuned. It had some motor induction kit, a few other bits and pieces. And I went in and I was like, right, I'm getting rid of the MR2. So I literally didn't have that thing for long. I went out there and bought an E46 M3 Evo in Estral Blue. Yes. Now that thing, I absolutely love that car.
The one that got away.
Yeah, and I owned it for a year, and I sold it for the same money I bought it for, so it's not too bad, but I wish I still had that thing.
And that's long for you.
Oh yeah, really long, especially considering I was 24, I think. Unfortunately then, I met one of my exes, and I sold it, because we wanted to go on holiday and stuff, and I bought a Golf Mark III GTI 8-valve, which was on the deck.
Yeah, and lovely car, but you just couldn't take it anywhere, couldn't get off his drive.
I remember calling the boys from work, you lot were in
work. Every time he came into work, there was a speed bump outside. We literally had to have boys ready with planks of wood just to get him into work every morning.
Anyway, I got rid of that because she was complaining it was too low. I ended up with a Saab 900, this piece of crap on it. It was a silver old Saab. No, I just bought it. But me being me, it didn't say standard for long. I had an old cone filter. I had a boost.
So it was a turbo, obviously.
Yeah.
Turbo.
Sorry, yeah. So yeah, I put this boost controller on there, fitted a boost gauge in there as well, and I literally drove it up and down the road, tuning the boost until it was starting to pink. And yeah, that thing, to be honest, went really, really well.
I remember you taking me out on it and there was nothing, the front wheels were just spinning and I was just like, we're in a Saab, this shouldn't be doing
I
this.
fitted a dump valve, so yeah, it was badoosh, and it was just, I was insane.
Good fun.
But yeah, I didn't have that for long, so I went out then and Ashley had bought the red BMW off Rob.
Whoever had it at the time.
Rob had it.
Yeah.
So Ashley bought the red E46 off Rob. He then decided to sell it, so I was like, okay, I'll have it. I bought that off him. I didn't have it too long because I'd finished with my ex and I was wanting an S2000. Liam took on the E36 from me. I went up and bought an S2000 pre-facelift. I loved that car. That was great. Fortunately then though, I'll say unfortunately, I met one of my other exes. She got pregnant, and and then I had to obviously needed something with a 4-door. So the only other alternative, something with a bit of performance, I bought a classic Subaru Impreza.
Yes.
UK 2000, sprayed in white. It had all the P1 bits on it. It was absolutely stunning.
Yeah, good car.
Until it went bang. That was my fault.
yeah.
I left the radiator cap off it. Right, so I bought the Impreza. We got some really good footage of that and some good photos. So we'll put some of that up now. I went on to the E46 M3. We went up to Cambridge to pick it up. Andrew gladly took me up there to go and get it. Absolutely loved that thing. I had it for 2 years. Spent a lot of money on it, upgrading brakes, wheels, everything. So when I was done, I ended up selling that too, and bought an E55 Amg. The E55 Amg was amazing, as in speed-wise. One of the guys I know now who does a lot of work for me, Ross, he was nagging me to buy it. He's a Mercedes specialist. Yeah. So he was nagging me to buy the car. So I had it for about 3 months and I let him buy it off me then. So I phoned up to try and get the E46 back. The guy wouldn't play, even with 12 grand, which was over 2 grand more than I'd sold it for.
In a matter of, what, a couple of months?
Yeah, I was stuck then, so I actually went and bought a 350Z. So,
What did you think of that, Ken?
I really, really didn't like that car. Going from 2 German powerhouses.
That was the problem.
To a Japanese sports car, rattly piece of crap. I just didn't like it. It sounded amazing. And it handled well, but everything else about it, I just didn't like it. So I didn't have that for too long. I went out and bought another 330 CD convertible E46 BMW. Had that remapped and a few other bits and pieces on that. That was stunning. Just didn't want quite feeling a diesel, so I actually then sold that and went for an Astra VXR, which is a lot of people don't like. Yeah. Mainly because of the people that own them.
Yeah, they got a bad rep. The wrong people get hold of them.
Yeah, and unfortunately, but there was always something about when I really liked them.
Which surprised me, in fairness.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of people said that. They were like, oh, well, you bought an Astra. The one I bought was the example of it was absolutely amazing. It was super clean, well looked after, modified correctly.
Yeah, the previous owner was a detailer?
Yeah, he was a detailer, so the paintwork and everything was immaculate on it, and they even fitted like the LSD, Courtney Motorsport done all the tuning on it. Unfortunately, I had to go and buy a house. So I had to sell the cars. I went out then and bought an Audi A4 Avant. That had a set of wheels and lowered on coilovers. I saved up a bit then, and then I went out and bought a facelift S2000. I had the Fireblade sat in the corner, which I'd done 600 miles on.
Yeah.
Sold that, sold the car, and then that's how I bought the TTRS. And that's where we're at the moment. Yeah. On to you.
What you did? Ooh. Right, so yes, my first car that started it all for me was a bright green Micra SI, nonetheless, which was the 1.3. Now at the time, all of my friends had Corsas, Clios, 1.2, so having a 1.3, as you said, displacement is everything when you're 17.
Yeah.
It was the fastest car out of all of us, so it was spot on. I did go a bit OTT with the green accents and green lights, again,
really?
As you all do.
I think you must have had 3 batteries. Yeah.
And then I did what every 17-year-old does. Went and spent half the value of the car on an exhaust system, custom exhaust. Did the same with the wheels, brand new set of wheels on a £500 Micra. But it got to a point, the car was so clean, did not appreciate that at the time, but it got to a point where I was like, no, need more power. I must have been 18, 19, so I needed more power. So found a Saxo VTR, probably one of the worst for sale that I could have found. There was nothing but problems with it from day one, which I should have known. We went down there, there was no MOT on it. The guy was MOTing it that day. We waited there for 4.5 hours. So that should have been a hint. And even driving it back was an absolute shed. So,
being young though is probably a budget as well. You know?
Yeah. Well, I actually overspent on it thanks to my lovely father. He put some more money towards it, which he really wasn't happy with because it was an absolute shed.
That's what I was saying.
But as to say, quickly learned my lesson. Didn't have that long, and the opportunity for a Mazda MX-3 came up off someone I knew, and once again, that got very lucky with that. It was a very clean example, relatively cheap. So bought that, fantastic. The teenager in me kicked in and I ended up buying some 17-inch chrome wheels.
Bling, bling.
And they were very bling.
That was cool back then.
Yeah.
That's when started styling, you know? And
again, all of my friends still had Corsas, Clios, so at the time, I was the one with the sports car.
Hey.
So I was the cool kid for once. After that came, I planned on keeping the car. But it was only when, as Kenny said, he pulled up outside the house in his red Civic Coupe. And as I said, there's cars you love, and there's cars you must have, and I had to have it. Yeah. So, had the Civic, did a lot of work. I really liked that car. We did a lot of work. We prepped it for a paint, because that was 50 Shades of Red. Yeah. Prepped it ourselves in the spare time that we had. Actually got the paint work done. I actually bought a Civic hatchback with a B18 C4 lump in, and the plan was to transplant it into the Civic Coupe.
That thing was awesome though, in the hatchback, because it was like stripped out and
completely stripped out.
I had it off you for like a day or two, I think.
Yeah, you drove it more than I did.
I think I did, yeah, and I give it some.
So went to put that in the Civic Coupe. There were a few complications and it was bad timing. A couple of things went wrong. Didn't have time to fix. Basically, the unit that the car was in was sort of being evicted. We had to get it out. Completely ran out of time. Completely ran out of resources. So
lost the jobs.
Yes.
Because we were working together then. So,
yeah. So unfortunately, I had to strip it, which is the most painful thing I've had to do, and ended up scrapping it. I didn't have that much money at the time, so I ended up getting a Peugeot 306 D-Turbo S, which at the time, didn't realise what a D-Turbo S was, which by all accounts are quite rare, quite a good one, and it was a really good example of one. And once again, brought it up to Kenny, all mechanical, so we managed to tweak the fuel, tweak the boost. What a little sleeper that was.
Yeah, it was cool.
And I remember staying, it wasn't a TTRS, but I remember staying side by side with the TT, and the two guys that were in their suits didn't know, the look on their face was absolutely phenomenal. I've always had the jack bug, so I ended up going back into a Honda Civic Coupe, which was blue/green, they actually call it. Again, being a Civic, quite rusty on bits, so we ended up, well, Kenny actually helped me fix a few bits on the arches and actually ended up plasti dipping it, which is where my obsession for plasti dip came in. Yeah. Which I think came out really well. That's what I said, really easy stuff to use. I think at that time, sort of you guys, everyone around me was in sort of German cars, so I thought, wanted some of that. So I looked at getting an E46 and actually got a 330D, and that was a really good car. And guess what? I plasti dipped that as well. If you're going to plasti dip white, for God's sake, use a base coat or a primer, because we didn't.
Or don't.
Oh, just don't. I'm on BMW anyway. But really good car. After the E46, again, I had the bug for a petrol car, and I wanted a turbo petrol. Being young, I wanted something I could afford, but it had to be turbo, had to be petrol. And Kenny actually came up with a really good idea of an Ibiza Cupra. I think you actually found me a really good example of one.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I never gelled with it. I owned it about 16 days, I think it was. Just something about I didn't like how it drove. I just could not get on with it.
I personally, I never obviously owned it, so
Yeah.
I liked that. I drove it once or twice.
Yeah.
And spent about 3 days cleaning things, modding it, doing different things. Yeah, but
I thought, oh,
if you
that'll
can't
make me
gel,
love it.
yeah,
But it just really didn't.
sometimes it just don't work.
On paper, they're brilliant, and I said I couldn't pinpoint what was wrong with it, just did not get on with it. Yeah, so next up, again, I wanted a nice weekend car, and Kenny actually found me the E46 that you see today. So on Facebook, we actually went to Norwich to collect it, which was a bit of a drive, and it was only on the way back we realised that they actually had a whiny diff.
Yeah, it was squealing a bit on the way back. I was driving it back, Andrew was in the Mondeo.
Yeah.
Which was firing on probably 1 or 2 cylinders by the time we got the red in.
That's a completely different story.
Yeah, I did tell him to just to leave it there, throw the keys in it, and hope somebody picks it up.
Yeah, but I get way too attached to
yeah,
cars.
I spent a lot of money on retrieving that car.
More than I think I paid for the car.
And sold it for.
Yeah.
But yeah, never mind.
Anyway, on to better things. Got the Beamer home. Really fortunate with that. The previous owner modified it really well. He was the type of person that he would only put the best on there. So yeah, really lucky with that. It's been about 6.5 years now.
Yeah, it's
we've had that.
Yeah.
And there's still plenty more to come on. I've got some big plans for that.
Every engine?
I wish.
Oh.
Maybe, if we can get one for less than 10 grand. So yeah, I won't go too much into that one.
Yeah.
Watch the other video for the full details.
Yeah.
So, then on to the big boy. An opportunity came up for a Mk4 Toyota Supra. Now, the guy was actually building it when he mentioned he was selling it. It was an NAT, so obviously naturally aspirated, converted to a turbo. Was also manual converted with an aero top, which is a rare find, and I got very lucky with it. So couldn't really afford it at the time, but thanks to my amazing brother, he basically saw the potential as well, threw the money at me and just said, get it, you have to have it. Yeah, it didn't disappoint. Like a childhood dream, one of my realistic dream cars, I owned a Mk4 Supra.
Yeah, they are that type of car. I've always wanted one.
Yeah.
But unfortunately now the Japanese tax or whatever they call it is just totally outpriced, I think, what it's actually worth.
Yeah, I mean, I've owned one, so I think I've got the right to say. They are very overestimated, I would say. I mean, an amazing car, thoroughly enjoyed driving it. Handling wise, they're not designed for handling. Yes, you can get a lot of power out of them, but
it's an iconic Japanese car.
Yes, yeah, but the way they're going,
but I don't think they're worth 30 grand.
No. Glad I've owned one, but I would never pay what people are paying these days. Yeah, got rid of that because using it as a daily, I had a 6-pack clutch in it, which was an absolute nightmare to drive every day. And to be honest, I was still young, couldn't really afford it. So made the sensible decision to sell it, pay off some debts, and
you still had the E36?
I did, yes. So I actually, so it's not as if I had to go back and find another car. I actually had a good car to go back to, which actually made me realise how good the E36 was, hence why it's still with me today. After that, we actually fancied, me and my wife fancied a fun weekend car, so we actually got a 5th gen Celica GT, 3SG engine, phenomenal engine, really good car. And the poor thing only came out when we wanted to give it a beating on the weekend, and honestly it just kept coming back for more. Never had a problem with it. Until it got to the point where it was getting on a bit, high mileage, the rust started creeping in, and again just didn't make sense to repair, so we got rid of that. and I wanted to get into track driving. So we actually invested in a Saxo that we picked up for £100. A Saxo VTR, and actually did basic mods, caged it, turned it into a track car.
You had two anyway, though, didn't you?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Needed a daily as well, so we actually bought another VTR.
A daily for your daily.
Yeah. That I kept relatively standard, so we had the track Saxo and the daily Saxo, which were phenomenal cars. Only reason we got rid of both of them was because they both suffered the rear axle play, and again,
it's just not worth doing.
No, it's really not.
Unfortunately.
No. Then we moved on to a guilty pleasure of mine, and I know the car community is divided on these, Mark 1 MX-5s.
Yeah, known as a hairdresser's car. My mother actually had one, and she was a hairdresser.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. But a lot of people say they're one of the greatest handling little sports cars you can get. Wanted to see what it was all about.
Yeah, they are what they are, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're fun. They're not very high powered, but they're not. They don't have to be.
They're not meant to be designed for that.
They are super fun.
Well, I've owned mine 18 months, just under 2 years. And in that time I've covered about 600-800 miles, and even with those miles there was something wrong with it. So I'm yet to experience the full MX-5 experience, but it is in the process of being supercharged as well as many other things, which is really coming close now. It's almost on the road.
Can't wait to see it then.
So no doubt I'll get to experience the full thing.
The build is on other videos though, so please check.
Yeah, we have got all the information, all the modifications in a separate video. I will link that if you want to go and watch that. So, like we said, apart from a few other dailies, they're not really worth mentioning.
No.
I think that about wraps it up for our car history.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. As for the next project, I've decided between a few different cars. I am going to go back to classic Japanese, 90s Japanese. Narrowed it down to either a two-door Subaru Impreza Classic or an Evo 5/6, possibly even an MR2 Turbo. I know I've owned a few MR2s, but never had a turbo.
Yep.
If you guys just, can give us a hand, point out what you prefer to see, try and sway me towards either one. That'll be the next build, because obviously we have a workshop, my garage.
So we want to go back to doing stuff in the garage, because we just don't do it anymore. We need to go back to modifying a car in the garage.
What we used to do.
Yeah.
So, and we want to share it with you guys.
Yeah.
So we did have a few things lined up.
Yes.
Obviously with COVID, the weather hasn't helped. A few people have let us down, unfortunately. But we've got a lot of cars lined up.
We've got some great cars
which
lined
are
up.
being built and
almost
there.
Yeah. So they are sort of scheduled in. So stick with us. They are coming.
Oh yeah, some really special stuff.
Yeah, we've got some courses. As I said, stick with us, and you will get to see that.
And that pretty much wraps it up for the day.
I think we're good.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Give us a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we will see you in the next one.
See you then.